This is also a time of change for my family.
In recent days, a subtle yet unusual detail has caught the attention of royal watchers. Buckingham Palace has maintained a deliberate silence. No denials, no reassurances, no corrections amid the mounting wave of speculation surrounding King Charles and the line of succession. Certain administrative signals suggest the king has summoned his most senior legal advisors while postponing several ceremonial engagements. According to longtime royal observers, this kind of freeze typically emerges only when a momentous decision is under serious consideration. What has stirred public intrigue the most is that the rumors are not focused directly on Harry or Meghan, but rather on two names rarely questioned publicly: Archie and Lilibet, the elder children of Harry and Meghan. In Montecito, Meghan Markle is said to have responded in a markedly different way from previous occasions. No forceful statements, no immediate media counterattacks, just hurried behind-the-scenes maneuvers and unanswered outreach from London. What has led King Charles to opt for silence over dialogue, even at the potential cost of a permanent rift in the family? Who is concealing what, and how dangerous might that truth be? The fading afternoon light filtered through the enormous stained-glass windows of Buckingham Palace, casting a splendid, yet somber orange-gold hue across the marble floors. This was the place where power, honor, and family secrets always hid beneath layers of velvet and the echoes of history. For a long time, the atmosphere in the inner palace had seemed thick with a tense silence, the kind that only appeared when a major event hung in the air. However, in recent days, that silence had been torn apart by whispers, seeping out from sealed corridors and slipping through thick layers of security like a harmful vapor. People murmured about an impending move by King Charles, the monarch who ascended the throne after the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. He was the one who always faced the challenge of balancing 1,000-year royal traditions with modern demands. But this time, the rumored action was decisive and unprecedented. The rumors centered on a declaration that would remove Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, the two children of Harry and Meghan, the youngsters carrying royal blood, yet living thousands of miles from the throne in California, from the line of succession. For those well-informed in aristocratic circles and long-time advisors, such a decision was not merely a ceremonial change, but a thunderbolt. Although the relationship between King Charles and his younger son, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, who had publicly stepped away from royal duties with his wife in 2020, in the event famously known as Megxit, had grown cold to the point of freezing, stripping the children of succession rights was a radical act, almost akin to disownment. This only heightened curiosity and extreme anxiety among politicians and enthusiasts. Though no official document had yet been released, the palace's prolonged silence was a terrifying confirmation. No denials, no reassurances. That silence weighed heavier than any statement, leading the media and public to believe even more that the decision had been carefully considered and was merely awaiting announcement. Senior advisors, with rigid faces and cautious eyes, maintained only reserved and evasive attitudes. They knew well the nature of this silence. It was a shield, and at the same time, a fuse. Half a world away, in the luxurious and secluded villa in Montecito, California, Meghan Markle received the scorching news from England with a completely unexpected reaction. Meghan, the former American actress who had caused an earthquake by marrying Prince Harry in 2018, was always known for her unshakable, confident exterior. She embodied decisiveness, a woman who always controlled her narrative and public image. She had left the royal family, but had never truly abandoned the fight to reclaim autonomy and influence. She believed that, even no longer a senior member, the titles and status of her children would forever be the final key keeping the royal family within her grasp. Yet, upon receiving word that Charles might do the unthinkable, sever the bloodline connection between Archie and Lilibet and the throne, her usual confidence collapsed. Her initial reaction was not the fierce anger one might expect, but a confusion bordering on chaos. She paced endlessly in her office, trying to use reason to tear apart the rumor. She had planned for every scenario, except Charles acting so radically and silently. Meghan had always believed the royal family feared scandal, feared the public turning away, and feared legal confrontation. She had bet everything on that fear. Now, it seemed Charles was ready to accept all risks, or worse, had found a way to avoid the risks she posed. The chaos within her quickly turned into a cold fury. The rumor of removing Harry and Meghan's children from the line of succession was not just a change in the inheritance system. It was a clear and unmistakable sign that the relationship between the Sussexes and the British royal family had reached a point of no return. It was no longer about personal differences or disagreements over royal responsibilities. It was about the survival of principles and power. If Charles did this, it would be the final confirmation of the bitter separation, reinforcing the image of a broken family. It would also spark unanswered, buzzing questions. What had driven the king to make such a cruel decision? Was it merely retaliation, or was there a deeper, darker reason being concealed? While the whole world was still guessing, analyzing every diplomatic move and the psychology of the main figures, the real story had unfolded earlier. Like an hourglass flipped upside down, time quietly reversed to 7 days prior. That was the moment everything truly began, and the brown envelope containing a horrifying secret was placed on King Charles's desk. 7 days before the rumors about removing the Sussex children from the line of succession spread like wildfire, an event took place in absolute secrecy, known only to King Charles and a handful of his most trusted confidants. King Charles, a monarch burdened with the responsibility of preserving a 1,000-year legacy, sat in his private study at the palace. The soft golden light from an antique desk lamp fell across his deeply lined face, lines carved not only by age, but by the weight of the crown. He had long felt a profound weariness, not from strenuous work, but from the constant need to maintain the fragile balance between family affection and the principles of monarchy. His own scandalous divorce, the tragic death of Princess Diana, and now the unending rebellion of his youngest son, Harry, had etched into him the lesson that personal emotions were the most dangerous enemy of the throne. That morning, a thick paper envelope, carefully sealed, had been placed on his desk. There were no official markings, only a prearranged secret code. It was a highly confidential report from a reliable source in America, an individual King Charles had quietly tasked years earlier with monitoring developments in the lives of Harry and Meghan across the Atlantic, a mission that had continued long after they stepped away from royal duties. He had assigned this task not out of a desire to interfere in his son's private life, but from the cold caution of an heir to the throne, all too familiar with trouble and deception. King Charles opened the envelope with a silver letter opener engraved with the royal crest. Inside was a neatly organized dossier, containing no definitive conclusions, only a series of events and details cross-referenced against the Sussexes' public records. He began to read. His eyes moved over entries concerning personal records, the timelines of pregnancy announcements, and the inconsistencies in later interviews about the births of Archie and Lilibet. Each detail was a small dot. Connected, they formed a suspicious picture. The report did not declare, "This is the truth." It merely highlighted unusual signs related to the children's lineage. A cold, sharp doubt, like the edge of a blade, began to gnaw at his composure. Charles's hand tightened around the documents. If these suspicions were true, even in part, his silence would become a betrayal of the throne he had just sworn to protect. The throne could not tolerate a deception of blood. But if the information was false, or the product of malice, Acting on it would destroy the last fragile thread binding him to Harry. He would turn himself into a ruthless enemy and drive his son into complete despair. This was an agonizing dilemma. Duty to the realm clashing against the fatherhood he had buried deep for so many years. After reading the report for the third time, King Charles made a decision. He would not share this information with the royal household. Not yet. A leak would unleash an uncontrollable media storm, and it would tarnish 2 innocent grandchildren before the truth could be clarified. He could not risk the reputation of the British monarchy with a scandal that would shake it to its roots. Discretion was his only weapon. He stood, walked to the fireplace, and stared at the dossier still lying on the desk. Charles did not burn it. Instead, he locked it carefully in a safe, to which only he held the key. He needed an answer, a confirmation, and he knew he would never obtain it through official channels or representatives. The only way to uncover the truth, or at least to assess the risk, was confrontation. He had to face Meghan Markle directly. It was a private path, fraught with danger, but the only one by which a monarch could quietly safeguard his throne before declaring open war. The meeting was arranged with such haste and secrecy that it left almost no trace in any official royal records. Meghan Markle flew to London in disguise on a private trip, using discreet routes and means of transport to evade every camera and public curiosity. The encounter took place in a small, rarely used room at St. James's Palace, a venue far less associated with King Charles's public activities than Buckingham Palace, creating an atmosphere that was intimate, yet suffocating. As Meghan entered the room, her appearance was impeccably composed, from the modest yet elegant attire to the calm expression on her face that betrayed no hint of anxiety or tension. She had always been a master at controlling her public image, and even in the most perilous situation, she maintained the confident demeanor of someone attending an important business meeting, rather than facing an interrogation about the true lineage of her children. King Charles sat opposite her, his face revealing a weariness and patience stretched to its limit. He had no need for flowery words or direct accusations. He simply placed a thin dossier on the table and slowly slid it toward Meghan. The gesture carried the weight of the throne, a wordless challenge she was compelled to meet. He did not mention the specific details in the report. He focused solely on one fundamental royal demand: transparency. Yet the private exchange between them brought none of the clarity Charles had hoped for. Meghan deftly sidestepped the central question. She offered neither confirmation nor denial of any suspicion. Instead, she steered the conversation toward privacy and the safety of her children. Her voice blended the tenderness of a mother with the sharpness of a lawyer. She stressed that Archie and Lilibet, living in America, needed protection from the toxic scrutiny of the British press. More crucially, Meghan firmly refused any suggestion involving bringing Archie and Lilibet back to England for any form of verification regarding their lineage, whether discreet medical testing or a ceremonial act. She cited the stress and psychological harm the children had already suffered due to their estrangement from the royal family. This refusal was a cold, strategic move. It came close to an implicit admission that she had something to hide, or at the very least, that she would not allow anyone but herself to control the truth. Tension escalated as Meghan began to apply subtle pressure. She signaled her readiness to turn the matter into a full-blown crisis if Charles pressed further. She alluded skillfully to her connections with the American media, to personal documents in her possession, and to the power of modern public opinion, forces that could easily damage the already fragile image of the British monarchy. She believed the royals would never risk a scandal that could destabilize the institution so soon after Queen Elizabeth II's death. Meghan judged Charles through the lens of compromise and fear of media backlash she had observed in other royals. Watching the steely resolve and skillful manipulation of his daughter-in-law, King Charles realized a harsh truth. He would never get an answer from Meghan. She would never voluntarily surrender the truth. She was forcing him to choose between defending the honor of the throne through a risky public action or retreating into silence to avoid scandal. As Meghan rose to leave, ending the unresolved confrontation, she tried to convey respect, but her eyes held a veiled challenge, as if she had won the first round. Charles watched her go in silence. He understood that to obtain the answer, he would have to seek it himself, not through questioning, but through action. This failed confrontation did not discourage him. On the contrary, it strengthened the resolve of a monarch. He would uncover the truth, and then he would wield his power to protect the throne at any cost. After the fruitless confrontation, King Charles realized he was engaged in a battle of principles that could prove fatal. From the moment Meghan left the small room at St. James's Palace, he cast aside all hesitation and shifted into the cold, decisive mode of a monarch. This was no time for fatherly affection or compromise. This was the moment to safeguard the integrity of the dynasty. Charles quietly initiated an internal investigation, one of absolute secrecy. He did not want it labeled a lineage investigation. Those words were too wounding and too easily exploited. Instead, it was disguised as a review and verification of dependent royal documents related to the Megxit events. The probe focused not directly on the two innocent children, but on the past and the puzzling gaps in Meghan's life, from before her marriage to the present day. King Charles carefully selected a team of legal advisors and archival experts. They were individuals who had served the royal family across generations, well aware of the paramount importance of discretion and unwavering loyalty. Old records were scrutinized layer by layer, detail by detail. Data on timelines, locations, public appearances, and personal medical reports, documents Meghan had been required to share in part while still a senior member, were cross-checked rigorously. Charles personally monitored progress, keeping all interim reports under his direct control. He wanted no hasty conclusions. He wanted irrefutable evidence, whether it exonerated or confirmed the horrifying suspicions. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle also sprang into action. She recognized Charles's unusual silence after the confrontation as a dangerous sign, not a retreat. She believed the king was wavering, and the time had come to ramp up the pressure until he compromised. Meghan drew on her extensive network, particularly in media and legal circles. She made no direct public announcements, but she began leaking information indirectly. Anonymous articles in major American outlets started questioning the simmering hostility from the palace toward two innocent children. Indirect legal maneuvers were undertaken, submissions for personal privacy protections, and clarifications on financial rights related to assets and titles. Meghan was employing an old but effective strategy, creating the threat of scandal. She wanted Charles to feel the noose of public opinion tightening. She believed that the moment the royal family sensed an unacceptable risk to its image, Charles would be forced to yield. She would regain control, secure assurances on titles and finances for her children, and ultimately dispel any doubts about their lineage. Both sides entered a war without gunfire, where the more patient one, and the one better at controlling information, would prevail. Charles waited patiently for the data to coalesce, working in the shadows of history and principle. Meghan moved swiftly, harnessing the glaring light of media and the sensitivities of the modern age. As time passed, King Charles spent many hours in solitary reflection, weighing possible outcomes. He knew that even if the investigation confirmed the worst, making it public would be a double disaster. It would tear his family apart, disgrace Harry, forever wound Archie and Lilibet, and permanently erode public trust in the throne's integrity. In the end, Charles made a pivotal decision: the choice of a true monarch. Whatever the investigation revealed, however harsh the truth, he would never make it public. He would not turn the royal family into a legal circus. Instead, he would wield his supreme authority to act decisively yet mercifully, preserving the institution's dignity by quietly eliminating the source of harm. His silence would be the evidence and the verdict. The highly confidential internal investigation of King Charles finally reached its conclusion. The dossiers had been compiled, the gaps filled, and the inconsistencies highlighted. The results were presented to the king in a concise summary, objective and scientific, devoid of emotional language. King Charles sat alone in his study, reading every line, every figure, and when he closed the document, the cold resolve of a monarch had completely replaced the torment of a father. He had the answer he needed, but as he had already decided, no official announcement came from the palace, no emergency press conference, no public statement condemning or clarifying. Only absolute silence, deliberately maintained by King Charles. Instead, a stream of vague, unofficial yet powerfully suggestive information began to flow from sources described as very close to the royal family. These sources started planting subtle, carefully worded doubts with top editors and respected journalists. They did not name Archie or Lilibet directly, but they clearly hinted at serious issues concerning the integrity of the line of succession and actions that would be taken to protect the legitimacy of the throne at any cost. The public, already on edge from the initial rumors, quickly pieced these fragments together with the palace's ominous silence. Royal experts and analysts began reaching a consistent conclusion. King Charles was preparing a quiet but decisive move. They believed he would remove Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession without any explanation. This was not a compromise. It was ultimate protection. Keeping the truth unspoken was seen as the only mercy he showed his grandchildren, in exchange for the permanent revocation of their inheritance rights. In Montecito, Meghan Markle followed these developments with mounting panic. Her strategy had failed. She had calculated that Charles would fear a media crisis so much that he would be forced to compromise. But instead, his silence had become a weapon far more terrifying than any accusation. That silence was an impregnable fortress wall that none of her legal efforts or indirect media pressure could breach. Meghan immediately intensified every attempt to salvage the situation. She called old advisors, sent letters to other royal family members, desperately seeking an intermediary to speak with Charles. But every effort went unanswered. The palace had erected an unbreakable wall of isolation. She felt cornered, completely stripped of her ability to control the narrative. Her confidence evaporated, replaced by anger and despair as she realized too late. She had underestimated King Charles. She had seen him as a weak father, not as a cold monarch willing to sacrifice personal feelings for the duty of the crown. Meanwhile, Prince Harry remained entirely on the sidelines. He did not grasp the true nature of the matter, only sensing the growing tension and the increasing coldness from his father. Meghan, in her effort to protect her own interests, had chosen to keep the confrontation and the lineage suspicions secret from Harry. This only deepened his isolation. Harry was trapped between loyalty to his wife and bewilderment at his family's frostiness. Meghan finally understood a bitter, belated truth. King Charles's silence was not a concession. It was the heaviest sentence of all. It robbed her of the chance to publicly refute, turning all her efforts into desperate cries in the wilderness. By never speaking the truth, Charles had preserved the dignity of the monarchy, while delivering a fatal blow to the power and standing of the Sussexes. The affair did not end with a shocking press conference or a scandalous courtroom drama. Instead, it concluded in the cold silence of administrative documents and dry financial adjustments. King Charles's decisions were executed swiftly and thoroughly, demonstrating the unrelenting resolve of a monarch. No explanations were offered, no letters exchanged, only internal notices, dispatched discreetly, yet carrying the weight of royal constitutional authority. Meghan Markle suffered the greatest loss, though no public accusations were leveled against her. Within days, financial decisions took effect. She lost all remaining funding from the royal purse, her few surviving charitable patronages, and honorary military titles were revoked. The style HRH, Her Royal Highness, was permanently stripped from all official documents and public contexts. It was a symbolic yet devastating act. It deprived her of all soft power and influence. Meghan had underestimated Charles. She had gambled on his emotional weakness, but forgotten the absolute strength of royal principle and administrative machinery. The price of trying to force a monarch to compromise was now the complete loss of her status and ability to raise funds through royal association. The Sussex family was forced to become entirely self-sufficient in finances and security. Though they had independent income streams, being severed from official royal support made all their future projects exponentially harder. Meghan's power had never lain in money itself, but in her ability to use titles to attract money and attention. Now both were taken from her. Prince Harry was not directly punished. He retained the title Duke of Sussex and remained the king's son. But Charles's actions pushed him completely to the margins of all major decisions, both familial and national. Acting without consulting his son demonstrated a complete loss of trust. Harry was isolated in his own home, unaware of the true nature of the crisis, kept in the dark by his wife, and ignored by his father amid suspicion. His fate was loneliness and powerlessness in the very heart of his family's battle. For Archie and Lilibet, the outcome was enforced with mercy, yet finality. The line of succession was quietly updated internally. Though no public removal was announced, sources close to the palace confirmed that the two children had been struck from any potential role in succession, a truth that needed no declaration. They were spared public humiliation and lineage stigma, but forever excluded from the throne's history. Charles had shielded his innocent grandchildren from the media spotlight, while simultaneously protecting the throne from potential doubts. In the end, King Charles had safeguarded the British monarchy. He had acted on an unbreakable principle: the legitimacy of the throne must be preserved above all. He avoided a scandal that could have scarred generations, not through concession or pity, but through restrained power and timely silence. He proved that wrongdoers need not be exposed on front pages. They need only be stripped of the power to cause further harm. The monarchy had been strengthened, not by family sentiment, but by institutional steel and integrity. Buckingham Palace once again sank into silence, but this time it was the silence of victory and stability. The storm had passed, and the throne endured. After reading the story, in your opinion, is King Charles III's decision to remove Harry and Meghan's children from the line of succession the action of a cold monarch protecting principles, or a ruthless father due to duty? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.